Welcome back, students, to a session on action potential. Action potential. A potential which creates an action in the cell is action potential. At the end of the session, the student should be able to define what is action potential, describe the stages and ionic changes that occur during action potential, enumerate the properties of action potential and explain them. This comes under the physiology competency 1.8. So, nerve is one of the excitable tissue. It has the ability to respond to stimulus. The stimulus can be either chemical, mechanical or electrical. By producing an ionic change, it can either produce a graded potential or an action potential. Today's session is on action potential. So, what is action potential? Each and every word is important. The change in the membrane potential from its resting negative value. We all know the resting membrane potential is negative. The change from the negative resting value towards positivity. If the membrane is moving towards positivity, what you call that as? You call that as depolarization. If the membrane is moving towards negativity, you call that as hyperpolarization. Here, the membrane is moving from its resting state towards positivity. From the positive state, it is coming back to the resting state. Movement of the membrane from the depolarized state to the resting state, you call that as repolarization. From resting state, moving below the resting state is hyperpolarization. The membrane potential coming from the depolarized state to the resting state, you call that as repolarization. So, action potential is change in the membrane potential from the resting negative value towards positivity, that is depolarization, and return of the potential to the resting state, that is repolarization. When does this occur? In response to an optimal stimulus. Optimal stimulus, the word is very, very important. So, every word is important. Moving towards positivity, return to the resting state in response to an optimal stimulus. When you stimulate, the membrane is moving towards positivity. It is moving beyond 0. It is going to plus 30, plus 40. It is coming back to the resting state. When it is coming back, you call that as repolarization. It should again regain to its resting state. Then only you call that as action potential. What is this? You have the sodium channel, you have the potassium channel. We all know there is an activation gate in the sodium channel and inactivation gate. You have two gates in sodium channel, activation and inactivation gate. At rest, the activation gate will be closed and the inactivation gate will be open. Remember the class on transport across membrane. The activation gate will be closed at rest and the inactivation gate will be open at rest. When there is an electrical stimulus, when the membrane potential is changed towards positivity, this is the stimulus for the voltage gated sodium channel. What happens? The activation gate opens, the inactivation gate closes. The rate of opening of the activation gate is faster, the rate of closure of the inactivation gate is slower. So, there is few milliseconds during which the channel is permeable to sodium ion. This is what is happening during depolarization. In response to the stimulus, the voltage gated sodium channel is getting activated. The activation gate opens and the inactivation gate closes. By the time the inactivation gate is closing, you have few milliseconds left during which the membrane is permeable to sodium. Sodium moves from extracellular to intracellular compartment. This is what is your potassium channel. You have only one gate, the activation gate. So, during repolarization, as the activation gate of potassium is opened up, what happens? Potassium is going to move. From where to where potassium will move? Potassium will move from the intracellular to the extracellular compartment. See, when the membrane is repolarizing, when the membrane is repolarizing, you can see the inactivation gate of sodium is closed, the activation gate of sodium is still open. This is not the normal configuration of sodium channel. We all know at rest, the activation gate should be closed, the inactivation gate should be open. You remember this very well. Okay. So, this is action potential. During action potential, what is happening? There is increase in the conductance of sodium ion through the sodium channel. There is increase in the conductance of potassium ion through the potassium channel. So, two channels are getting activated, the sodium and potassium channel, increasing the conductance of sodium and potassium. Sodium is moving from the extracellular to intracellular. So, what will happen to the membrane potential? Sodium is a positive ion moving from extracellular to intracellular. The negativity inside the cell is going to decrease. The membrane is moving towards positivity. Potassium conductance is also increased, but the potassium conductance increase when the sodium conductance is falling. As the sodium conductance is decreasing, the potassium conductance is increasing. What has happened to the membrane? Because of increased sodium conductance, the membrane has moved towards positivity. So, the potassium conductance, that is movement of potassium from the intracellular to extracellular compartment, is going to lose positive ion from interior to outside. So, the membrane potential is going to come back to the resting state. So, coming to the phases of action potential, you have the resting membrane potential, you have a stimulus artifact. After the stimulus artifact, there is a duration during which there is no change in the membrane potential. You call that as latent period. Then you have the firing level. Then you have the overshoot. This phase is the depolarizing phase. Then you have the repolarizing phase. The slow repolarization is called as after depolarization, and as the repolarizing membrane goes below the resting state, you call that as hyperpolarization. So, the phases of action potential are: from the resting state, there is a stimulus artifact, there is a latent period, there is a firing level, depolarization overshoots, the spike potential is there, that is repolarization occurring. During repolarization, you have after depolarization and after hyperpolarization. Each and every phase we will see in detail.